This episode was brought to you by us.
Us.
Yes, us. That just
Us.
reminds me of the PBS where like, this episode of Arthur was brought to you by
Oh my
Juice
gosh. Yeah, dude. Remember, dude, I remember that theme song, man. I loved, dude,
Every day when you're walking down the street.
No, I wasn't going to say that. What I was saying was every day when I'd come home from school in like third grade or whatever, I'd always watch Arthur.
Oh, yeah,
Dude.
I loved Arthur.
Dude, every day when you're walking down the street, all the people that you meet, it's a, Remember when you were like, oh, it was a long time ago, we were recording we were playing The Forest together, and you were like, oh, hey, dude, remember Arthur? And you were like, dude, it was like some Jamaican guy that sang the song.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, it wasn't. And you're like, yeah. And then you played it on the podcast or whatever. And I was like, shut the fuck up. And it was. I did not remember that. Dude.
Let's see. It was Ziggy Marley.
Ziggy Marley? I don't know who that is, dude. Like, I don't listen to that kind of music.
Well, I don't either, but it sounds familiar. I feel like he's popular.
Well, I mean, it's been fucking Arthur, so I'd hope so.
Every day when you're walking down the street and everybody that you meet has an original point of view, and I say, hey, what a wonderful kind of day if we could learn to work and play and get along with each other.
What is this?
You gotta listen to your heart. Listen to the beat. Buy our sweatpants and our merchandise.
I was gonna say, like, we're supposed to be like shilling for ourselves here.
Sorry, I got off the track.
Yeah, we were talking about Arthur. All right, legit, guys. All right, listen. Hey, this is a brand new YouTube channel, Two Nerds Podcast, and because YouTube is YouTube, you can't monetize, until you get like 1,000 subs, blah, blah. So we don't make anything making these podcast episodes. If you want to show some support and some love to me and Krendor, please consider going to krensloth.com, checking out Krendor's, sloth pants and mugs, or consider checking out the Nixxiom corner store. And we are currently working on a cool, like, Two Nerds podcast themed, like, shirt idea or merch idea that can maybe directly support the channel, and that'll be for you guys directly. So this episode was sponsored by us.
Yeah. So today, I thought we would talk about writing, because we've actually done a decent amount about writing. But, we even did that one podcast where we each wrote a short story.
We did. That was, I think that was the first episode of, like, Nixxiom and Krendor, when we started, like, using this, like, this drawing of me and you, like, together and stuff.
Maybe it was.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, wow, it was.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I figured we'd start talking about writing again, because I was on a plane, and I found all my old, like, plots and things I was working on for my book on my laptop. And I was like, dude, why'd I stop working on all these? Like, I completely forgot all about it. So on the plane, I was, like, tweaking some stuff and, like, thinking of new ways to, fix some of the old things I wrote down, where I was like, oh, this was good then, but it'd be even better if I changed this, blah, blah. And then it just made me want to write more, especially because then me and Toaster Woman, we were watching Harry Potter again.
Oh boy.
Just because we were like, let's just watch Harry Potter. And so I feel like whenever you watch something like a Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or whatever it is, it makes you, it inspires you, because you're like watching this world someone else created and kind of envisioned, and it makes you want to do the same thing, because you're like, hey, I have all these ideas and things I want to implement, which is kind of why I did, like, WoW videos anyway. It's kind of a creative outlet, but writing is kind of the ultimate creative outlet, I think.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
you actually went to Disneyland.
I did go to Disneyland, another crazy creative type of place, because you're literally walking around in, like, Walt Disney's, like, brain.
No, you didn't. This is a reference back to episode 1 of Two Nerds Podcast. But you didn't eat any blueberries, did you?
No, I didn't eat any blueberries.
Okay, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It was blueberries, right?
Yeah, it was blueberries. But no, I didn't eat any blueberries.
All right, yeah.
Although writing, it's a small world after all. Makes you feel like you ate a blueberry halfway through it.
Yeah, if you guys don't know what the heck we're talking about, go watch episode 1 of the podcast, First Time Weed Stories, and you'll understand. Yeah, you can probably pick up what we're putting down just from me saying that in the title of episode 1, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can go on.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, yeah, me and friend, we've been talking about writing for a hot minute, probably for the past like year and a half or however long it's been that we've been doing like these sit downs and talks and whatever. And rightfully so, you know, some people could be like, well, you guys keep talking about these books you want to write, but where's the books? Yeah. Yeah, where is it? You know, so going into this new year, like 2020, like for me personally, you know, you got a lot of inspiration from, you know, being on the plane and looking over your old plots. Me personally, I have a lot of inspiration just to, we sort of talked about this in the last episode because we were talking about business and YouTube and blah, blah, blah. But I really want to expand I guess you could say the Nixxiom business, if you would. And I really would like to expand it into like just selling some books. And, you know, recently, you know, here's the thing as well. This is sort of on topic, but off topic, but it's on topic. So hear me out. I've noticed that like, like going into the year 2020, I've sort of made it a habit of mine to every day to take a moment to just chill. And usually this involves smoking a cigar. Just every day, just sit hour and a half and just slow down for a second and just kind of take the weight of the world off the shoulders and chill. And writing for me is a way that I can chill. Writing, reading, and smoking cigars. Like that's what I do to chill. And I'm like, well, I'm doing this every single day. And, you know, I mean, I love smoking cigars. You know, it's great. And I love reading. But some days you just don't feel like doing that. And, you know, how am I going to spend my hour to hour and a half on those days? Well, why don't I just write? Like, I love writing. And why don't I just make it my goal to just write? My friend Zach, some time ago, is back last year around like April or something. He gave me the piece of advice because his friend is actually a published author. I don't know her name, but she gave him some advice some time ago that one of the main things that stops people from writing their books or finishing them is they just write a chapter or two or three, and then they just go back and they just keep editing, and they keep editing and keep editing. What you should do is you should just write. Like, it doesn't matter how bullshit the chapter is. Like, just write the book and get it done, and then go back and edit it. Like, get that rough draft finished, you know? And she made a metaphor. She's like, you wouldn't, like, if you were writing an essay, like a 5-page essay, you wouldn't write one page and then just keep going back and re-editing it. And you'd write the whole thing first, and then you'd go back and edit it. And it's the same thing with a book.
Yeah.
You know, and so that, I mean, I'm just like, yeah, you know, just let's devote like an hour, like every like few days, just sit down, write this book. We can talk about what our books are about in a second. That would be kind of cool. And that's my goal. So I'm right there with you, man. I'm inspired. And honestly, I'm just genuinely curious, like, you know, call me a greedy bastard, but I'm just genuinely curious, like, you know, how many people are going to buy my book?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
I mean,
yeah.
It's
how many people love me? You know,
it's interesting because, you know, it's like I've said before, a lot of people that do YouTube or whatever have like gone on to write books, but a lot of time they write books that are like talking about their own lives, or they're like biographies, or like, you know, the type of thing where it's like, oh, I don't know,
boring shit.
Yeah, just boring shit. Some people might like it, but I think it's boring shit. Like, to me, I think I'm under the impression that like everybody has the potential to be an author. Like, I think everybody has like a creative vision. Like, writing to me is like how you can express yourself as a person in one of the best ways, because, you know, you're not limited by, for example, in like Machinima, you're limited by your editing software and filming tools and whatever. Like, when you're, all these other forms of media, you're limited, but in writing, you can write anything. You can be like, he had a sword that was 10,000 feet tall. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
he does because I said it and your imagination
Yeah.
creates it. So it's kind of like the world's your oyster at that point. Like you can write whatever you want, and I think that's just really cool.
It's also like something else that inspired me recently to get into writing and wanting to talk about this sort of stuff with you and with the community. Like over like the past year, I've read a lot of books. Some books that I've read have been fantastic. I've been like, wow, this is a good book. It taught me a lot. I loved the writing style. And some books, I'm not going to name no names, but some books that I've read, I'm like, this is garbage. Like, why? Like, there was this one book, and I ain't gonna say no names, but there was this one book that I read, and I was reading it, and I'm like, this is like a rough draft. Like, this sucks. Like, there's like sentences are running on too long. The characters don't make any sense. Like, this is garbage. And this dude has this book published and it's getting sales. Like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I not doing this? It's like the dude that sells literally nothing, like boxes of nothing on Amazon. Like,
you could buy 50 Shades of Grey. That's an awful book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's like, dude, what am I doing with my life, yo? So it was just inspiring because, I guess something that has personally held me back and probably has held back a lot of people is when I think about writing, I'm always like, oh, yeah, well, I can't write a book because my book is never going to be as good as like the actual authors out there. But as you read more, you kind of quickly find out that, yeah, there's some great authors out there, but there's also authors out there that really like suck. And not just like, oh, yeah, well, it's my opinion that they suck. No, like they suck. Like they fucking suck.
Yeah.
So
It's
anyone can do it.
Yeah, like in the past, I watched a lot of like I tried writing maybe like 2-3 years ago where I was like I got really into writing. And I was watching like these like YouTube videos on writing and I was reading and doing all this stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna write. And so I tried and I wrote like 20 pages and I was like, all right, and I had people read it and everything. And then I started watching these Brandon Sanderson videos. And he's like one of the biggest fantasy authors out there. And he was pretty much like every year he teaches a class and like pretty much breaks down writing and like it's a really good thing. Just look up Brandon Sanderson class on YouTube. He just started So like he just started it up again. So if anyone's interested, it's on his YouTube channel. So you go over there right now. He's like uploaded episode 2 today where he's teaching about plot. And I actually interviewed him on a Fishing with Krendor, which is like probably one of my favorite Fishing with Krendors.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was really cool just getting to talk to him, and he was even talking about how someone like us with like a YouTube following should go like about publishing and doing all that. So you should probably go listen to that. Actually, I might re-listen to my own Fishing with Krendor now. But it was really interesting.
What was his name again?
Brandon Sanderson.
Brandon Sanderson. All right.
Yeah. So he's really good for just learning. I mean, his books are good, but he's a really good teacher on top of that. So after I watched all these classes and kind of practiced a bit more, I went back and I read that and I was like, wow, my story sucked ass. So like, I started like fixing things and like correcting stuff and seeing a lot of my errors. But it's kind of one of those things where, you can read all you want about how do you swim and like, how do I do a backstroke or a front flip or like a breaststroke and all that. But until you get into the water and you're like, blah, blah, and you start like drowning and like learning how to float and swim and shit, you're not going to learn. So I think that's the biggest thing is when you force yourself to write, you learn a lot easier because you see the mistakes that you might make or common mistakes that you can correct. And that's, and on top of that, you actually write something.
Yeah. I had a thought, but I kind of just lost it. Writing, Brandon. I was going to say that I think another thing that people struggle with is maybe even I myself fall into this. uh, aiming too big too quickly.
Yes.
I mean, everyone and their mum wants to write some 900-page epic,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's not where to start. I mean, like my logic, I think I talked about this in one of our previous like sit downs, but my logic is just how about just start with a small short story,
Yeah.
like maybe at most like 200 pages at
Mm-hmm.
most. But I don't know if you want to talk about what your plans are for your story, but I had this idea of writing sort of a book for maybe like young adults, like that, like just aiming for that territory, like, you know, late
Mm.
teens, young adults. Um, and yeah, are we gonna like spoil our ideas in this or?
I mean, if you can go into as much as you want about your thing,
Okay, I mean,
like,
do you have things you want to talk about or?
yeah, I can talk a bit about what I was like working on and all that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my idea for my story, I don't want to spoil everything because, you know, I want to keep
Mm-hmm.
some plot elements a secret. But essentially, I wanted to, uh, like, my original story that I wanted to write was just way too ambitious. Like, you know, my own fantasy world, my own mythology, like all that stuff. And I wrote a lot of that and I was very happy with it, but it is still very ambitious. So I reeled it back and I was like, well, I kind of just want to write a story about like a young man, like a young boy just graduated high school and his father. And again, I want to keep a lot of it like kind of secret, but essentially his mother dies very early on in the beginning of the story and him and his father's relationship falls apart after this. And let's just say that his dad gets involved in some really dark stuff throughout the book um, in order to reunite himself with his wife, and the son has to suffer through all of this and survive. And yeah, yeah.
Huh.
So I like the reason why I don't want to go into too much detail is because I'm sitting here thinking like, dude, some dude's gonna like watch this and be like, man, that's a great idea. I'm gonna write that because I'm a real fast writer.
Well,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
that's the problem with it. But at the same time, like when I was listening to Brandon Sanderson, he is talking about how the vast majority of people that want to write or that are like, oh, I should write a book and all that will never finish a book.
Yeah.
And that people um, just don't have like either the time or the commitment or whatever it might be.
Mm.
But uh, pretty much like if you just like commit to writing every day, like you'll end up with a book pretty
Yeah.
quickly, actually.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of what I wanted to write, I'm kind of at the same problem where I want to write this giant like trilogy type thing like Lord of the Rings, but I almost feel like I'd rather write like a Hobbit first, where maybe it's a short story that is its own type of book, but it can also carry into my next, like trilogy big fantasy series I want to do, but it's like in the same world, if you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, so like my story is I wanted to do something involving like a valuable resource or like for me it'd probably be a lake. So it's like maybe the water or the liquid or whatever it is. Doesn't even have to be like actual water. Like this liquid type thing is like really magical and powerful. It could be like a steroid, like people are injecting it.
Like a well of eternity, you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and you see like how the government like keeps it for their own use, or like people try to steal it, or like it leads to these other civilizations, or like maybe there's more than one lake, like who knows, like
Mm.
um I think that's one angle I want to do. Just it doesn't even have to be a lake, it could be like minerals, it could be some other shit, like I'm not sure yet. I feel like I want to do something with a resource.
Mm.
And then the other thing I really want to do is I want to do like the Arthas Darth Vader, uh, you know, uh, what's it called? The good guy that goes bad, but you
Mm.
can see why he goes bad type of thing.
Yeah.
or like he used to be good. He was like the fallen hero, I think is what it's called. I really love that type of character because it's like, there's the Dark Lords and like, oh, he's evil and that type of thing. But I love those characters because it's like they really tried to be good, but they got, a little too caught up in their own power for their own good.
Yeah.
And so I really like that type of hero or character in general, whether they're good or bad, because you can kind of relate to them and be like, you know what? I can see why they did that, right? Like those guys, like, we're gonna kill his mother, and then he got crazy, and he was like, nah, and that gave him power, and then he thought he was something else. Or like Arthas, even if you look at his story, you're like, hey, he's bad, but like, he didn't start out bad. Like he was good and all these things. So I really like that type of character.
Mm-hmm. I'm really a big fan of like, so with my story that I mentioned earlier with like the son and his dad getting involved in like some darker things, and like descending into madness. One genre of story that I really enjoy personally is horror. I really like reading. I mean, when I was a kid, for example, I read almost all the Goosebumps books. And then as I got older, I enjoyed reading more like adult horror stories. And when I was sitting here and I was meditating on like, well, what is a story that I really want to write? If I'm not going to write this like big grand epic, what is something I would like to do? And the first thought that came to my mind was horror. I was like, oh, I really like horror. But I didn't want to do like some edgy horror where it's like, Karen screamed as the monster tore out her eyeballs. Like, I didn't want to do something like stupid like that. I wanted to do something a bit more psychological. I really like stories where it's a character study and you can sort of get into the character's mind and you can really feel like what they're going through in a moment because you can really relate to it. And that's my hope with this story that I'm writing because, my idea is to start it as like sort of a very subtle like horror story. And then to slowly throughout the book to sort of ramp it up and ramp it up and ramp it up, and even have a lot of unexpected like twists and occurrences that occur that I am hoping will not terrify the audience. I mean, that's not my goal, but to make them uncomfortable. But I obviously still want to keep it within that young adult age range. So. I don't want it to be like stupid, like mature levels of writing. And when I say mature, I don't mean like, like sex and language, because I don't consider that mature writing. I consider that amateur writing, in my opinion. We can talk about that later if you want.
Yeah.
But, I mean like using big words and stuff, yada, yada, yada.
That's kind of how I am too. I like more of like a young adult writing style, mainly because I feel like my vocabulary isn't that big anyway, or like I actually prefer to read that type of book just because I feel like it's easier for me to follow along. So otherwise, if the words are too big or like I get kind of lost in the prose being like and then I have to like reread it. Maybe I'm just fucking dumb, but I don't know. That's just what I like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for that. I mean, like when I was reading the War of the Roses series, I kind of had to keep my phone close by to look up certain words that I was not familiar with. Like the author would make references to like certain pieces of armor and like what they were called, and certain names for like different kinds of horse armor, and also places like in France and in England that I was not aware of. Like, oh, where's this? And I'd have to like kind of open up a map and be like, okay, so they're there. Like, okay, I see. So yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place for that, but it can make the book a little bit tedious if you're not familiar with all that stuff. But it does help you like kind of immerse into the world a bit. But yeah, I mean, I kind of, when I was talking to my girlfriend about it, I was sort of like, I kind of want the book to read on the same level as like a Star Wars book. Like it's something that anybody could pick up and read it. But yeah, because I mean, that's what I enjoy. Not Star Wars books, but somewhere in that territory. I don't want it to read like a Lord of the Rings book where it's like, oh, whence thou doth cometh unto yonder fields. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it is better for to reach a broader audience, just because then, like you said, like more people can read it.
Yeah. I also like writing poetry, so I was thinking about writing a poetry book.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, because I write a lot of poetry.
Like, really, you should just write what you want to write, because that's going to motivate you to write the most.
Exactly. What other like what is like your favorite like genre of book to read? Is it like fantasy or what?
I like fantasy, but it's kind of funny because the thing I probably read the most is just like marketing books, and like
Yeah, me too.
I read I read a lot of marketing books. Like I read Steve Jobs' like entire autobiography when that came out years ago. I just read a lot of that stuff, so I don't have a lot of experience, or I don't have as much experience, I guess I'd say, with fantasy, even though I like it a lot. But I kind of want to change that. Like I want to start reading more fantasy books. So that might be a goal I set for myself this year.
Well, in regards to goals, something that we brought up in, I think, a previous podcast, and it's something to get more community feedback on. But I was thinking about the idea of the Patreon page.
Mm-hmm.
So for those that don't know, I had this idea, and I proposed it to my Twitch audience. I stream live on Twitch. Krendor streams live. And my audience was pretty in favor of it, and people seemed to be like, oh, that's a pretty cool idea. But, more feedback, obviously, where essentially the idea would be like, Patreon is a support website. And it's like, oh, you pledge like a certain amount to like a creator, and then you're like rewarded for it. So my thought process was to create a Patreon page where it's like people can directly support the stories that me and Krendor are writing. So like, let's just say, for example, it's $5 a month. And then at the end of the month, pretty much you are given as a reward, we upload like previews of what we're writing. And then people can read it, they can critique it, they can, criticize it and tear it apart, and so on and so forth. But you can also, I know, if I remember correctly, Patreon has a thing set up where it's sort of like, you can either do like a monthly system, where like, let's say I was pledged to Krendor, it's like, oh, I give him $5 a month, or you can do it by like when you actually complete something. So essentially, it'd be like Krendor or me would have to upload a preview of what we're writing. Otherwise, we don't get anything. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like a sort of like an incentive system to keep writing and keep creating. And it's also a good way to get feedback. And I don't know, I just thought it'd be kind of cool. And yeah, I mean, it's also a way to support the podcast. I mean, that was, just killing a few birds with one stone. That's my thought process. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good idea too.
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea.
What do you guys think? Like, is that something kind of cool? Like maybe you're like, oh, maybe $5 seems a bit too much. Maybe like $3, or something like that. And I don't know, maybe we could make it like a thing. Like we upload like 3 pages a month, or because if we did like a chapter a month, like probably be done within just like, a few months, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just like a few pages a month, like Krendor will upload his pages, I'll upload mine. And maybe that'll be like a thing. Like Krendor has to upload his sample on the 15th of every month, like midway through, and I have to upload mine at the end of the month. Or something like that. Like that would be interesting. Yeah. And then
I think that's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, and then like for that one dude like that is ultra mega rich, it's like, oh dude, if you give like $100,000, then we'll put your name as a character in the story. We'll put your name, Andy, into the book. It'll be perfect. So, but no, that's not gonna happen.
Unless.
No, that's not gonna happen. Okay.
But yeah,
So
it's
there's an idea.
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, I just wanna write because I've been talking about writing for so long, and it's like, why am I not writing? You
Hmm.
know, like I kind of hit that point where I was like, I could just be writing right now. Like, why haven't I started writing? I guess I realized that on the plane because I was like, wow, this is something I really wanted to do, and I just haven't done it.
Yeah, I mean, I also like the idea. Like, for me, I really want to get the feedback from the community, and I also want that metaphorical whip on my back, being like you must write.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you have made this pledge to these people to, upload this every month. Blah blah blah. These people are supporting you. You must write. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that personally, but then again, I'm fucking crazy, so.
No, I think it's kind of good because it gives you that kind of push, that extra push you might need.
Yeah, because like let's be real, like inspiration is a false god who whispers only lies. Like you might be like, "Oh yeah, I really want to write. I really want to write." You might want to you might be like that right now, but are you going to be like that in a month?
Mm-hmm.
When like you're sick or when I don't know, like something happens with your friend, like maybe not.
Yeah.
So, but in this case, it's like, "Oh no, I have to." So,
Yeah.
that's what I think anyway. What is like, all right, like let's create a scenario. Let's say you were starting on your book tomorrow. What are you like how big is this book that you're going to try to write? And like what's your goal? Are you going to finish it by the end of the year? Or like what? Tell me your goals, writing goals. Let's hear it. Goals.
Uh, yeah, I'd like to finish it by the end of the year. That would probably be my main goal is to finish the book by the end of the year, and then probably to write at least I'd probably want like a weekly word count to keep myself to, and that would mean like maybe I could do it all in one day, maybe I'd space it out over a couple days, like I could do whatever I wanted as long as I hit that goal by the end of the week.
What
And
would be
those
a good weekly word count in your opinion?
I don't know because I haven't really like written like a whole bunch, so I don't really know what's
Let
good or
me
bad in terms of word count. Like I don't know if 5,000 is good or a lot, or like
let
a
me
couple thousand or 10,000. Like I don't know.
let me see let me check one of my recent scripts for one of my videos.
All right.
So this is my 10 historical movies script for my Nixxiom Unleashed video. Uh, so this is 1, 2, 3. This is 4 full pages. And where do I see how many words it is in MS Word? Oh, here it is. So 4 pages. I mean, there's some spaces in between, each paragraph or each
Mm-hmm.
like bullet because it was a top 10 list for those that don't know. I'm at almost 2,000 words.
All right.
All right, and that's at a 12 font, just so you know.
All right.
So 2,000 words, so 4 pages. So I would honestly say, like, in my opinion, I would say that like 4 pages or 5 pages a week would be pretty good. So maybe like 2,000 to like 2,400 words.
I just looked up NaNoWriMo or whatever it is because I know that's like write a novel in a month, right?
Okay.
And it says to win NaNoWriMo, participants must write an average of approximately 1,667 words. So yeah, like
A week?
1,500 to 2,000 words a day.
A day. Okay. I mean, it's not too bad. Let me actually
Yeah.
write that down. I'm taking notes.
Yeah. So if you want a 50,000 word novel, you would want 1,667 words a day.
Equals how much was it?
50,000.
No, a day.
1,667.
All right, I got it. Neat. Okay, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think that's that bad.
No,
Like,
okay. I mean, I wrote a script just today, like this morning. I sat out in the garage and I just drank my coffee and I wrote a script for a new video and it's like 5 pages.
yeah. Like, I think 2,000 words a day is pretty doable. So, I mean, even if you put it at like 10 to 15,000 words a week,
Hmm.
as long as you hit maybe even like 10,000 words a week, and I feel like if you hit that point, you're probably going to go over that because you'll be so into it at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing for me, like, a lot of my videos that I make are scripted, so I do a lot of script writing. So it's kind of like, hey, I just finished writing this 5-page script. Well, time to write 5 pages for the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can get a bit tedious. However, I do admit that my last 2 videos that I uploaded on the Nixxiom channel, they were completely unscripted. It was just me talking into the camera, and they actually have done very, very well. It honestly made me kind of, when I saw like that the view count was really good, I'm like, man, what am I doing wasting my time writing these scripts? Let me just like turn on the camera and just talk and just cut out like the coughs and bits where I like breathe heavily into the microphone or something. Like, what am I doing with my life? So
I was listening to Brandon Sanderson talk about his like writing thing, and I guess what he does, because he writes like multiple books a year. And he said he usually writes in like chunks. So he writes, he actually sleeps late. So he'll write from like 5 p.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. Then he'll take a break for like a few hours. And then he'll write from like 2 a.m. to like 4 or 5 a.m.
Okay.
And that's him as like a professional full-time author. So he said even like 3-4 hours, he said is good because he's like the first hour he usually will write and he's not even like writing that much. He's kind of getting in the writing mood. And then the 2nd to 3rd hours, that's where he really gets into it and he just kind of flows with everything.
Yeah.
So he said that's kind of what you're looking for, is to hit that point where you're just flowing with the writing and it's kind of coming naturally.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Neat.
Because once you do that, then that's like you said, then you can go back later and look it over. Like you can just kind of, keep writing and writing. And then eventually, like maybe once you got a chapter, you can go back and look it over and correct things and then be like, all right, on to the next chapter.
How many pages would like a 50,000 word novel be?
That's a good question. How many pages? 50,000.
I have a small book next to me right now. Let me see how many pages it has.
It's about 100 pages single space, 200 double space.
200 double space. Okay, so I'm holding this book in my hand right now. It has 417 pages, so it'd be about half the size. That's not too bad. I mean, especially if you just like bust like 2 months into it.
And then this guy, who's a publisher of books, says it's 50,000 word manuscript should end up between 180 220 pages.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, it seems like a pretty standard sized book.
Okay. Should we try to make it a goal to like each write like a 200-page book?
Yeah.
I think
that's a good goal for the year.
Yeah, just like a short 200-page book. Like nothing too crazy. Take your epic idea, put it to the side, and focus on something short, sweet, to the point. Done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
I think that would be kind of cool. And then it's like, that's baby book 1. And then it's like, all right, and then maybe the next book could be another 200-page, and then maybe the next one could be another 200-page. And then it's like, okay, now I'm ready for like the 500-pager.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
That'd be kind of
even as somebody who's like, I've read like the Harry Potter books. Like if you look at the Harry Potter books, it kind of starts like that, where one's like really short, and the next one's kind of that, and then you hit like the middle, and they get kind of bigger, and then the last 2 are like ginormous.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah,
we could make that a goal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what do you guys think? Like down in the comment section. I know a lot of you guys, you listen to the podcast, and you don't leave the comments. You gotta leave comments. You gotta make sure you hit the like button too. It helps grow the channel and stuff. I mean, we're not openly advertising the podcast yet on our main channels, but we got to get around to doing that very soon.
Yeah.
We got to
ding that bell, hit that sub button, all that good stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, like this is off topic, but yeah, like whenever we upload like the podcast to our main channels, back when we were doing that, I mean, you're talking like thousands of views. Like per episode. So we got I'm sure there's a lot of people sitting there thinking, when's the next podcast episode coming out? They don't even know about the previous 3 episodes that we've done. Yeah. Or that we're uploading weekly. They're going to be like, what? Wow. They're going to be all excited.
This is crazy.
This is crazy. They're talking about writing again, and they're not going to write anything. Wow. How exciting.
Wow.
But this time it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So if we were to do this, okay. So I have. All right. So I have. I have people coming to my house in March. The first guy arrives March the 1st, and I'm gonna have him here for 3 months. And obviously, I'm gonna have a guy here. He's gonna be distracting me. Then I have another dude that's gonna come stay here for 2 months. So 3 dudes in one house is gonna be a bit distracting. I'll see what I can do, but what do you think we should do in terms of like a goal? Like, do you think it should be like, oh, let's try to have our 200-page book done by, let's see, we're in January, so maybe by like the end of July or something. What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay. Because that'll give me time, even if I'm like having to deal with these people and they're kind of distracting me and being loud and obnoxious and ruining my zen, because whatever. It'll still give me time to like catch up if I fall behind.
Yeah.
And that's also plenty of time as well. If we do the Patreon idea, it's time to put, like content out there or pages or chapters or whatever, and then to get feedback from the people that support us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good plan, in my opinion.
I like that plan. That's a good plan.
All right. So we've made a plan. All right, we can do that. Now, let's kind of shift gears for a second. I'm going to ask you a question, because we got about like 15 minutes left in this like recording before we hit like our hour mark. Well, it's actually more like 19 minutes, but whatever. We usually do 45 minutes to an hour. So, real quick, first of all, Krensloff.com or Nixxiom Corner Store, thank you for supporting the podcast in advance. Thank you very much. Wow. And second, we're talking about writing, but who would you say is your favorite author, and what's your favorite book that you've ever read, and why? There's a question for you.
That's a good question, because I feel like, here's the thing. I don't know if I've read enough books to the point where I feel like I have a favorite author or book. Like, I have a lot of books that I enjoy. Like, I like the Harry Potter series. I like The Hobbit. I like all my marketing books.
I was gonna
I've read.
Say, dude, you can say a freaking marketing book. I don't care.
I would, if I had to pick one that stands out, it would probably be, what was his name? Hold on, I think I got it.
Okay.
It's called Purple Cow by Seth Godin.
All right.
And it's one that I mentioned on like old podcasts I was on with like TB and Jesse and Dodger and all them.
Okay.
And it's a really good book, because it talks about how a purple cow stands out in a field of cows. Like, if you're driving down the street and you see a field of cows and one of those cows is purple, you're going to be like, oh, that's a purple cow. Like, I noticed that because it's different. And so you want to be that purple cow. You want to stand out, because by standing out in a sea of people that just look like normal cows, you get noticed. And that may not last forever.
Yeah.
But when you get noticed, that's, all you can ask for.
Of course. All right.
Yeah.
Is that like an actual book, or is that like a short story?
No, it's an actual book. Purple Cow.
Well, so what's the book about? Like, what happens in it? Does the cow like make friends or something?
Or no, it's like marketing and advertising, like advice.
Oh, it's a marketing book. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey man, dude, that's fine. I mean, one of my favorite books that I ever read was actually a dude left it was Platinum Wow. He left a comment on the last video. We were talking about business, and he was like, "Oh, like what sort of business books would you recommend?" Dude, like back in the day, man, like the book that started it all for me was just Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like that was it, man. Like that's like a classic book. I mean,
yeah.
Like in my opinion, like read it.
Yeah.
That's for those that don't know. It's essentially a book that it's a business book, it's a lot of things kind of book. Essentially, it's the author, Robert Kiyosaki, not sure how to pronounce it, or if I'm even saying it right, whatever. Robert. He's pretty much like, he's making a comparison between like his working father and his friend's dad, who sort of acted as like another dad to him growing up because he spent so much time around him. His one dad was like a blue collar worker. The other dad, his friend's dad, was like a business owner. And he was comparing their two ideologies on like how they view the world and how they just how they interpret things differently. So like if I remember, it's been a while since I've read it, but for example, like rich people don't work for paychecks and they don't work for money. They make money work for them. Like the sooner you get that mentality into your brain, the sooner you'll start to become wealthier. So yeah, what all that means, well, we'll have to do like another business podcast down the road. But yeah, I mean, that was, quotes like that and a lot of other ones. It was like, yeah, like it really helped me when I was first getting into business and investing and so on and so forth. And I'm really thankful for that book when I found it back in the day. And since then I've read a shit ton more. In terms of like stories, not like self-help books, I really enjoy, obviously, Lord of the Rings. Beowulf is probably, I would say if there's anything that I'm like the biggest fan of in terms of reading, it's Beowulf. I've read Beowulf so many times. I don't even know how many times I've read it. Especially when like you delve into the like deeper meanings of the epic poem that the average reader is not going to be aware of. Like, for example, if you were to read Culture of the Teutons, it talks a lot about Beowulf, and it talks about like, the story of Beowulf is you got this dude from Geatland, Beowulf, or, southern Sweden, and he goes to Daneland and he helps Hrothgar by killing this monster Grendel, and then he kills the sea hag, and then eventually he dies fighting the dragon. And, you might just look at this story as like, oh, look, big, strong guy beats up monsters, and like, that's it. But actually, Beowulf, if you delve deeper into the mythology and the culture of the people who wrote this story or kept it alive, it's actually a coming-of-age story because in old Germanic culture, there was this belief that you needed to come into your name when you were born. So, like my last name is Smith, and, just because my mom and dad bore me, and like brought me into this world, that doesn't mean I'm a Smith. I have to prove I'm a Smith first. And in fact, it was a common thing that children were not even allowed to sit with their family until you came into your name. And if you were a prince or someone of high blood, the only way that you could do this is you had to travel to another kingdom, and you had to win the respect and the renown of like a foreign king or a lord or a chieftain. And that's exactly what Beowulf is doing when he's helping Hrothgar. So he's earning his place at his father's mead bench and proving himself a worthy descendant of his father Ecgtheow. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so there's a little bit of info for you.
I actually read, we read like a summary of Beowulf in high school.
Okay.
But I honestly feel like I didn't really read it because I was in high school and I was always like, I'm gonna go play WoW.
Yeah.
But it's I feel like I just want to read more too. That's another thing I want to get into, is just reading more, especially fantasy.
Yeah.
Just because it'll help, it helps you write because you're reading other people's works of what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe you should do what I was talking about, like just an hour a day. Either sip wine. I mean, I see you got that wine cup, right across from me. I see you right there. Sip wine for an hour and just chill. Read for an hour, or write for an hour, or just. Every day, every person needs a moment every day just to sit back and chill and like reconnect with themselves and take the world off their shoulders. So maybe that's something that you could do.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, dude.
I'm
Just
gonna
like, oh,
every
what do I
day
want to
just
do today
chill.
to relax? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention How to Win Friends and Influence People.
I've heard of
Is
that
another
book.
good book. One
You've
of the
read it?
things I read, I don't think I read the whole thing, but I read a lot of it.
Okay.
And one of the things I remember most out of it, kind of influenced just all my machinima and like even interviewing people and things like that.
Okay.
Which was he talks about how he met a guy that really likes boats, and he doesn't care about boats like at all. He's like, I give a shit about boats. And so the guy, he just let him talk, and the guy's like, oh yeah, boating, blah blah blah. And then he's like, oh, tell me about boating. And then the guy just goes on and on about boating, and like, oh, I have a boat, I have this, I have that. You should come on my boat sometime. I'll take you to the boat. And he's like, oh yeah, it sounds great. And then like a week later, the guy comes into his office and he's like, hey, so does he want to come boating with me? Or like, how long has he been boating? To his secretary. And the secretary is like, he doesn't like boating. Like, he never talks about boating ever.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was just like, what? But it's because he literally just let the other guy talk
Mm-hmm.
about what he enjoyed. And so that kind of showed me like most people, they just kind of want an outlet to talk about what they enjoy. And that's what makes good interviews and good,
Mm-hmm.
anything is like letting someone else share their story.
That's like
Right.
me
Because
and
when you
Beowulf.
interview, yeah.
Yeah.
like like there's so many interviews and things like that where people have their list of questions and someone will just like answer the question that they ask and then they just move on to the next question. It's like, well, you're not really getting into who they are when you do that, right? Like imagine you're interviewing somebody
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, oh, I grew up on a farm and I got really into like brewing my own beer or some shit as was like a kid, and then it carried into my adult life. Instead of being like, wow, that's really cool. Anyway, next question, you're just like, wow, like tell me more about that. Like what kind of beer do you brew? Like what was it like growing up on a farm? It's just like digging deeper
Hmm.
into whatever you're talking about, and then that lets the person share their story a bit more, and it lets everybody else learn something, and it's more entertaining in general. And so I kind of learned all that just from that book.
Hmm. Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, uh, uh, yeah. Everybody.
It's like malfunction.
Yeah. Everybody has a story to tell.
Yeah.
You know. And then I think you can quickly find. I read in one book. I don't remember what it was. It was one of those kind of in the same territory as what we're talking about, how to win friends and influence people and Rich Dad, Poor Dad and blah, 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 Purple
Mhm.
Cow. It was just talking about how, and this is something that I discovered as a YouTuber. Sometimes people get this impression in their mind that oh, I can't approach someone who is like bigger than me, more famous than me, richer than me, blah, 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 because they don't have time for me and they don't want to talk to me about what they do. But usually what you find is the exact opposite. Like, for example, when I first started reaching out to YouTubers that were much bigger than me back when I was growing, and I was like, hey, man, you want to talk about YouTube stuff and the YouTuber life? They're like, yeah. And then they'd like sit down and tell me stories and we'd complain about the same things and have the same experiences and yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, don't be afraid to reach out to people. You know what I mean? I mean, you're not going to win every time. I mean, if you send a message to I don't know, Mel Gibson right now, he's probably not going to get back to you, but you never know what could happen.
Yeah.
You
But
never know.
at the same time, you also shouldn't be, I guess, feel like they should respond to you.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
there's the difference of like, oh well, I tried to reach out and it didn't happen, I'll move on, and like they didn't reach back to me, I hate them.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that type of thing. Like maybe they are just busy, maybe they're dealing with stress, maybe they're like there's they have a life as well, you never know.
Maybe you are just one of 1,000 people reaching out to them every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take it you've sat in that seat before and dealt with that, because I certainly have.
Oh yes, I feel like anybody that has over like 10,000 subscribers on a platform on the internet has probably dealt with that.
Yeah.
Although when you're smaller, like even at like a 5 or 10,000 subscriber thing or like that, it's a lot easier to collaborate with people around that level,
Mm-hmm.
and get to know people like that instead of like reaching out to a really big person, even though that really big person might actually, respond. Well, like I guess an example for me was like, oh, I never thought Brandon Sanderson would come on my
Mm-hmm.
like weird WoW fishing show, but then
Yeah,
he
that's a good
did. And I was
example.
like, wow, I'd like a world class author, like one of the best fantasy authors out there right now that actually came on my show and talked. Like, it was awesome.
Neat. Are you ever like when you talk to people, because I'm sure people might have this question, whenever
Hmm.
you talk to people like, hey, I'm talking to this famous author guy, or I'm talking to, who are some other big people you've interviewed, like people from Blizzard or something.
Yeah.
How do you get over the intimidation of talking to someone of that position or whatever you want to call it?
I actually got over it pretty quickly.
All right.
And the biggest way I got over it was because when I was getting into YouTube at first, the guy that got me into YouTube, uh, Rurikar, when I raided with him and I was in his guild, I like super fanboyed and I was like, oh my God, I'm actually playing this guy's guild. I'm playing with him. This is awesome, blah, blah, blah. And then after about a month, maybe not even a month, a few weeks, I was like, this guy's just another dude.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it made me realize that, celebrities, people you look up to, like whatever it is, everybody's just another person and they have their own problems and they have their own issues. And uh, that's kind of what I took from it. And so from then on out, I've just viewed every single person I've interviewed that way, and it works.
Okay. Well, there you
So
go,
I've
guys.
never, yeah, so I've never really had that nervousness since then.
Well, I taught you guys something about Beowulf, and Krendor taught you something about dealing with anxieties.
Yeah,
Figure
and
that'd be
we've
it.
kind of strayed from the writing angle
No,
at
it's
this
no,
point,
not at
but
all.
I still think it's tied into it a little bit. But
Yeah, it is because like something else that I would like to write down the road is I would love to write a book about uh kind of what it's like being self-employed. Like
yeah,
essentially the last podcast we did, but in book form with like a
yeah,
shit ton of information. Like this is some of the negatives you're gonna have to deal with. This is the kind of mindset you got to be in, and like how to get there.
yeah.
I mean,
I'd actually like to write something like that too.
yeah, like I mean, I mentioned I think in the last podcast that I'm currently reading a book on like self-discipline. And it's like it's not that I don't think I have self-discipline. Like cuz if you're going to be self-employed, you got to, keep yourself on a schedule, release videos, blah blah blah. But like these are the sort of skills like saving and budgeting and discipline that you should always be fostering these things and keeping them strong if you're going to be a business owner or self-employed. So, read that sort of stuff and get your mind in that sort of way of thinking. And that's one reason why I read books like that. And I'm pretty sure that's one reason why Krendor reads books on marketing and how to interview people and influence them and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Because
and
it,
that's
it helps you with
why
your
I want to
job.
read. That's why I want to read fantasy because it's going to help me write fantasy.
Exactly. Read what you want to write about.
Yeah,
Live what you want to write about.
that'll be your book.
Yeah. Live what you want to write about. There you go. That's our long title. Yeah. Well,
well,
we're at the hour mark, I'm afraid to say.
all right.
I mean,
Well,
we're at 50 or almost 59 minutes, so I think we got to call it here, yo.
all right. Well, let's call it. And again, leave your comments down below and tell us what you think about our writing goals and everything we want to do.
Yeah, our plans. What do you guys suggest we do? What do you think about the July idea, the Patreon idea? What do you think about yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I mean, Krendor, do you want to wrap this up?
Yeah.
You want me to- Go ahead.
All right. You could subscribe, hit the bell,
Mhm.
comment below. Check out all our other things. We got our other channels that you can find, our ASMR channel, Warhammer channel, your cigar channel, your Nixxiom IRL channel,
Mhm.
all that good stuff. Check out everything.
Mhm.
And our main channels, of course, as well.
That's right.
and follow everything. And that's all I got.
That's all you got. All right, man.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Check all the links down in the description below. Like Krendor said, yada, yada, yada. Support the podcast, get a shirt, pair of pants, whatever. And that's pretty much it. You know? And so, as always, I guess I'll give Krendor the final word.
See you.